Hi and welcome to MTG Manuscript. Today I'll be sharing with all of you my Commander deck, or EDH deck if you like to say it that way. Yeah, so just be going through all my cards in my EDH deck, and you guys can leave a comment below. So let me know what cards you think might be better for my deck. And yeah, so first up, my commander for my deck is Nekusar the Mindrazer. So this deck basically is about card drawing and sort of a group burn deck, or it could be a group hug deck if you want to look at it that way. So what Nekusar does is a 2/4 creature for 5, and at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. But however, whenever an opponent draws a card, Nekusar the Mindrazer deals 1 damage to that player. Yep, so for each turn, if you have Nekusar out on the battlefield, your opponent will draw 2 cards per turn, which sounds really good, but also they'll take 2 damage per turn, and it does damage to each opponent. So you're playing with 4 players, it will deal damage to each opponent, which is really annoying. So first up, we'll start off with our artifacts. So we have our standard Soul Ring, add 2 generic mana to your mana pool. We have our Chromatic Lantern. Lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, and it itself can add 1 mana of any color. We have our Coalition Relic, 3 mana artifact. You can tap to add 1 mana, and you can tap to put 1 charge counter. And you can use it before the beginning of the pre-combat main phase. So next we have our Howling Mine. At the beginning of each player's draw step, if this is untapped, that player draws a card. So it works in conjunction with our Nekusar. So in conjunction with this and Nekusar, each player will draw 3 cards per turn and take 3 damage. So next we have our Temple Bell, another group hug card. Each player draws a card, so pretty awesome, lots of card drawing. And next we have a Quicksilver Amulet, 4 mana artifact. You can pay for and tap, and you may put a creature card from your hand to the battlefield, and yep, you can do this any point of time, even on opponent's turn, which is really awesome. I'm not very sure whether I should put this card in my deck, but yeah, so that is what this video is for. So let me know whether this is suitable and whether I should put it in. But Quicksilver Amulet is a really awesome card for EDH. And next we have our Lightning Greaves. Equipped creature has Shroud and Haste, and equip 0 mainly to just protect my commander and some essential creatures. And next up, let's look at my enchantments. This deck pretty much depends on a lot of enchantments, so yep. So first up, we have our Spiteful Visions enchantment. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card, and whenever a player draws a card, Spiteful Visions deals 1 damage to that player. Yep, and so if you can see in conjunction with our commander and Spiteful Visions, every time a player draws 1 card, they will take 2 damage instead of 1. And in conjunction with Howling Mine, each player will draw 4 cards per turn and taking 8 damage per turn, which is super annoying. And next, also again in conjunction with Underworld Dreams, whenever an opponent draws a card, this deals 1 damage to him or her. So yep, if you're drawing 4 cards a turn with all the stuff that's on the battlefield, you'll be taking 12 damage each turn at the beginning of your upkeep. And again, with our Price of Knowledge, our 7 mana enchantment, players have no maximum hand size, so with the cards that we're drawing, you should have a super huge hand. And at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Price of Knowledge deals damage to that player equals to the number of cards in that player's hand. Yep, so you can see how this deck is going. Pretty much you are just allowing players to draw cards and holding cards in their hand, and then you deal damage to based on the number of cards they draw and based on the number of cards in their hands. And next I have a card. This is actually Exquisite Blood. It is in traditional Mandarin. So what this says is whenever an opponent loses life, I gain life equals to life opponent's loss. Yep, so with all the card drawing and losing life at the beginning of upkeep, if a player loses 12 life at the beginning of upkeep, I will gain 12, and if I'm playing with 4 opponents, I'll gain 12 times 3, 36 life. before it comes to my turn. So really very powerful enchantment with this deck. So next up we have our Phyrexian Arena. At the beginning of my upkeep, I draw a card and I lose a life, basically just for my own card draw to get the stuff I want. So usually people will play a lot of tutors in the deck, but basically this deck I have no tutors due to the amount of cards that I'm drawing already. So yep, Phyrexian Arena adds to the card draw that I have, and it works in conjunction with Jace Erasure as well. So whenever I draw a card, I may have target player put the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So if I'm drawing 6 cards per turn, target opponent that I choose will put 6 cards into his or her graveyard. So pretty awesome. And next I have Vicious Shadow, our 7 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature is put in a graveyard from play, I may have Vicious Shadow deal damage to target player equals to the number of cards in that player's hand. So pretty good with against players or decks that have a lot of creatures, and once this is in play, I can play a board removal and pretty much that player should be dead. Yep. And next I have Propaganda. Creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays 2 for each creature he or she controls that's attacking you. So just a spell that protects myself before my enchantments come out. And next I have Mind Control. Enchant creature, I control an enchanted creature. So basically just again stalling time. And sometimes taking control of opponent's commander is super annoying. And next I have Enslave. Pretty much is the same as Mind Control. However, the only thing is that at the beginning of my upkeep, the enchanted creature deals 1 damage to its owner. So sort of a better Mind Control, I would say. And next, let's take a look at the creature cards that I have. So first up, I have Neez. I have no idea how to pronounce that. Nekusar, the Fire Mine. Our legendary creature, Dragon Wizard, 4/4 for 6 mana. And whenever I draw a card, Nekusar, the Fire Mine, deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Yep, and so with this creature in play and with the amount of cards that I'll draw at the start of my turn, pretty much I'll be dealing damage about 3 to 4 damage per turn on my upkeep. So pretty cool. And next we have Jace Archivist, our 2/2 creature for 3, and you can play 1 blue and tap. Each player discard his or her hand and then draw cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. So yep, again relying on our commander and our enchantments. So when the opponent discard and draw cards, they'll do damage again, and yep, pretty annoying card. And next we have Visaling, our 2/2 creature for 4 artifact creature. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, it deals X damage to that player, where X equals the number of cards in his or her hand minus 4. Yep, and you should get where this is going. Next we have Fate Unraveler, our 3/4 for 4. Whenever opponent draws a card, deals 1 damage to that player. So in line with the card drawing team and dealing damage. And next up we have our Charmbreaker Devil, our 4/4 creature for 6. At the beginning of my upkeep, I return an instant or sorcery card at random from my graveyard to your hand, to my hand. Whenever I cast an instant or sorcery spell, it gets +4/+0. So basically a very good way to just reuse my instant or sorcery cards. We have Galvanov, our 3/3 for 5 mana. At the beginning of my upkeep, I may look at the top card of my library. If it's instant or sorcery, I may cast it without paying its mana cost. So yep, pretty awesome. And next, few wars. I have Fog Bang, 0/2 defender, flying, prevent all combat damage to be dealt and dealt by Fog Bang. Guard Gomezoa, 1/3 creature, defender, flying, prevent all combat damage to be dealt to Guard Gomezoa. Yep, so pretty much these two are my creatures to store time before the team or my combos come out. And next we have our Mnemonic War, 0/4 creature, defender. Whenever it enters battlefield, I return target instant or sorcery card from my graveyard to my hand. And next we have our instance and sorcery spells. So first up, we'll look at the spells that give us draw. So working in combination with all the card drawing and dealing damage combinations, we have opportunity, 6 mana and target player draw 4 card, flexible. I can draw for myself or I can make opponent draw card. We have our time reversal, 5 mana sorcery, each player shuffle his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, then draw 7 cards. Yep, so forcing player to discard their hand and drawing 7. If I have my commander and just one of the other enchantments that deal damage upon card draw in play, each player will take 14 damage. So next we have our vision skins. Each player draw 2 cards. We have our sky scribing. Pay X and 2 blue. Each player draw X cards. So yeah, pretty much a win condition as well. And next we have the same thing, we have our prosperity, pay X and 1 blue, each player draw X cards. It's both our Q spells. And next we have our Sickening Dreams. As an additional cost to cast Sickening Dream, discard X cards and induce X damage to each creature and each player. So again, with the amount of cards that we draw, we pretty much have a very large hand, so discarding cards to deal damage as to win the game is pretty much cool. Next we have our Molten Psych, our 3 mana sorcery. Each player shuffle the cards from his or her graveyard, his or her into his or her library, then draw that many cards. So the first this card tax is again relying on our dealing damage per card draw. So drawing that many cards will deal that much damage, and this has Metacraft. If I control 3 or more artifacts, it deals damage to each opponent equals to the number of cards that player has drawn this turn. So yep, another win or kill card in our deck. Next we have our Rune Flare Trap, our 6 mana instant. If an opponent drew 3 or more cards this turn, I may pay 1 red instead of the mana cost, and it deals damage to target player equals to the number of cards in that player's hand. Yep, so pretty much it's a cheap burn spell, sort of. And next we have our removal spells. And first up we have our Cruel Ultimatum. Target opponent sacrifice a creature, discard 3 cards, then loses 5 life. I return a creature from my graveyard to my hand, draw 3 cards and gain 5 life. Yep, so pretty good. We have our Cross's Charm. Choose 1, return target permanent to owner's hand or destroy target non-black creature. It can be regenerated or destroy target artifact. So another creature removal. We have our Phytesis. Destroy target creature, its controller loses life equals to its power plus its toughness, or we can do a suspend 5 if we pay 1 generic and 1 black. Next we have our Infest. All creatures gets -2/-2 for early game removal. Again the same thing, we have Pyroclasm, deals damage to each creature. We have our Greasy's Charm, return target permanent to owner's hand or target creature gets -4/-4 to deal with those creatures that are indestructible. Or creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn. Next we have our Incendiary Command, our 5 mana sorcery. Choose 2, it deals 4 damage to target player or deals 2 damage to each creature, or destroy target non-basic land, which is quite good in EDH, or each player discard all the cards in his or her hand and then draw that many cards. So again, this card works very well with the deck team. Next we have our Decree of Pain, destroy all creatures, it can't be regenerated, and draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. Yep, pretty awesome as well. Next we have our Slave of Bolas, our 5 mana sorcery, gain control of target creature, untap that creature against haste until end of turn, and sacrifice it at the end of the beginning of the next end step. Next we have our Fated Return, not exactly a removal spell, but it helps me bring back my commander and stuff that I really need, creatures that I really need, and it gains indestructible, so yep. Next we have Starstorm, reduce X damage to each creature, and we can do cycling 3, as in cycling for 3. We have Profane Command, choose 2, target player loses X life, or return target creature card with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, or target creature gets -X, or up to X target creature gains fear until end of turn. And next we have our Molten Disaster, we pay X and 2 raid and Kicker raid. If this was kicked, it split second and it deals X damage to each creature without flying and each player. And next we have our Illusionist Gambit, 4 mana instant, so tons of text, but basically what it says that if an opponent attacks, we untap all those creatures attack another player except me that turn. Yep, so pretty much you are forcing another player in an EDH game to attack another player instead of you. So it's really interesting card. Next we have our Sudden Spoiling, 3 mana instance with split second, and creatures target player control becomes 0/2 and loses all ability until end of turn. Yep, and so Sudden Spoiling works very well with Pyroclasm and Infest, so making all creatures 0/2 and I can just wipe them out with a cheap spell. And next up we have our Epic Experiment. I'm pretty on the fence about this one, but it's really a very good card in EDH. Basically you exile top X card of your library, and for each instant and sorcery card with converted mana cost X or less, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So yep, if you are playing tons and tons of instant and sorcery spells, Epic Experiment is pretty much what you want in your deck. Next, we have the rest of our cards which are counter spells. So first up we have Hinder. Counter target spell, if it's countered this way, put the card on top or bottom of the owner's library instead of the player's graveyard. So very irritating counter spell in EDH. Because if you are putting this on the bottom of the library, that player without tutors will never ever get it back, especially if you counter their commander. Next up we have our Dissipate. Counter target spell, if that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into the owner's graveyard. So yep, another way to permanently get rid of cards that you do not want to see. Then next up we have Undermine. Counter target spell, its controller loses 3 life. We have our standard Dissolve. Counter target spell, scry 1. We have our 2 mana counter spell. Yep, it's just counter spell. And next we have our Wild Ricochet, our 4 mana red counter spell. You may choose new targets for target instant or sorcery and then copy that spell, and I might choose new targets for the copy. Yep, so pretty much this is always a surprise for the opponent, because usually with only red mana open, they don't expect a counter spell. So next we have our Soul Manipulation, choose one or both, counter target creature spell or return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. And next we have our 1 mana counter Swan Song, counter target enchantment, instant or sorcery, and its controller put a 2/2 bird token. And next, last one we have our Counter Flux, is basically a counter spell that cannot be countered, and with Overload. Yep, so these are our counter spells. And next up, let's look at our lands. Playing an EDH or Commander deck, your lands are pretty much essential. So a few utility lands that work in conjunction with the deck is Reliquary Tower. You have no maximum hand size. Yep. So with the amount of cards that we are drawing, we do not have to worry about discarding our cards, because if we have this in the battlefield, we basically just hold on to whatever we want. So yep, first that's that. We have our Bojuka Bog. It enters battlefield tap. When it enters battlefield, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. So basically just to deal with commander decks that does with dredge or graveyard play. So yeah, and this is a land, so this can't be countered. Instead of putting casting a spell to exile a graveyard that could be countered away, you put a land that exiles all cards from target graveyard. So pretty good. And next we have all our lands that do our mana fixing for us. We have our Izzet Boilerworks. It enters the battlefield, tap, and you must return the land you control to its owner's hand, and add 1 blue and 1 red. We have the same thing for our Rakdos color. It adds 1 black and 1 red. Next we have our Dragon Skull Submit. It enters battlefield tapped unless you control a swamp or mountain. And we have our Drowned Catacombs, basically the same thing, but this is our Dimir color. We have our Steam Vents, our EDH Shockland, Blood Creep, Rakdos Shockland, Watery Grave, our Dimir Shockland. And we have our temples, our Dimir Scry Temple, and our Rakdos color Scry Temple. We have our 3 Guild Gates, Rakdos, Dimir, and EDH. Yep, basically we are playing Grisis. And same thing, we have our Vivix, Crack, Creek, and Mash, or Marsh, whatever how you want to pronounce it. Yep, enters the battlefield with 2 charge counter, and you can remove 1 charge counter to add any mana to your mana pool. So next we have our Crumbling Necropolis, our triple, it's called triple color land. We have our Command Tower. You need to have this if you are playing Commander. We have our Ruptured Spire. And next we have our basically not that interesting lands that I'll have our Echoing Refuge. It enters battlefield tap, and when it enters battlefield gain 1 life. We have our Evolving Wilds just to thin out our deck slightly. We have our Temple of Force God. It adds 2 to your mana pool. Activate this ability only if you control 5 or more lands. And we have our Grisis Panorama. It adds 1 to your mana pool, and you can sacrifice these to search for an island, swamp, or mountain, and then shuffle your library. And the rest is just our standard lands, mountain, islands, and swamps. Yep, to be exact, I have 3 mountains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 islands, and 5 swamps. Yep, and so that's it for my commander deck, playing Nekusar as the commander. So yep, oops. So let us know what you think about this EDH deck. If you have comments or ideas to help me improve the deck, do leave it in the comments below. And so that's it for this episode. If you like to support the channel, please do hit like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.